So here we are in Las Vegas. It is time for a delayed but still brilliant Las Vegas Grand Prix review. FP1 began with Lewis Hamilton top the session for Mercedes, setting a 1:35.001, and looks pretty brilliant overall in a Mercedes that looked very, very fast. But Hamilton, as always, wasn't getting carried away considering his recent struggles in qualifying. Loads of the world champions fell off the cliff during Las Vegas free practice as they struggled to get to grips with a track that had no grip, including Fernando Alonso and FP1 pace hitter Lewis Hamilton, who had a big lockup heading in the final sector of the racetrack. But he wasn't the only one. World Championship leader Max Verstappen had another lockup. The three-time world champion was trying to push his Red Bull to the max as he tries to clinch a fourth straight World Championship this weekend. However, his World Championship contender Lando Norris wasn't doing any better as he slid off the track as well at the same corner as Max Verstappen. The McLaren driver didn't look quite as quick as Verstappen, who looked a bit quicker than the Papaya car. And Guanyu Zhou also went out too in his Kick Sauber, who are chasing their first points of the year this weekend, as they still haven't achieved anything and sit bum last in the Constructors' Championship. In the end, Franco Colapinto nearly crashed out for Williams, which nearly gave them further heartache after those questions heading into the weekend on whether or not Williams would be able to compete with all their crash damage. FP2 was underway though, and Lewis Hamilton continued to top the session. His lap 3/10 quicker than he'd managed in FP1, and he was 3/10 faster in FP1 than anyone else, but this time Lando Norris was in second place and looking fast. Lewis Hamilton had an early moment again in a Mercedes that looked difficult to handle. Let's hope these mistakes don't continue in qualifying and potentially cost him a shot at pole position. Hamilton's mistake was accompanied by several others. Sergio Perez looked for a new career after him looking set to leave Red Bull at the end of the 2024 campaign. His poor performances mean that he hasn't scored many points at all in the last 5 races, and in the United States has been his last point-scoring result, and even then he was beaten by Russell, who started in the pit lane. In the end, Kevin Magnussen, who's back in Formula 1 again after his Brazil hiatus to Ollie Behrman, also struggled to get to grips with his Haas, went off the road as he tried to get the maximum pressure. However, there was another off-road moment for Sergio Perez, who again went off the track looking for yet another new career destination. The Mexican driver had a miserable weekend out in Mexico and Brazil, with points not coming in either of the affairs. But as FP3 got underway, Lance Stroll's Aston Martin came to a halt just before qualifying later on. The question is can Stroll compete at the end of the session? But George Russell set the pace ahead of Piastri and Sainz, and after the red flag, Hamilton didn't get a set in a lap time in P6, and considering I predict him to be biggest flop, I can't wait for him to be on pole position at the end of qualifying. So as qualifying began to get underway, the question is would Lance Stroll be able to get out? He could, but as Julian Palmer was shocked, Stroll could only manage last, and he was out alongside Red Bull's Sergio Perez. Red Bull's slim hope of the Constructors' Championship is evaporating by the minute, and there are people like Franco Colapinto in the wall. There's another Williams in the wall, and this time it's rookie Franco Colapinto, who was only 14th anyway. However, the almighty shock wasn't the fact that Colapinto was in the wall, or that Hamilton had made Q3 for the first time in ever. No, it was Zhou. Zhou had made it through to Q2 in a Sauber and had qualified Bottas for the second weekend in a row. Bottas is becoming a wash now. Hamilton, anyway, in Q3 made an error on his first push lap. He was looking set on a brilliant lap that could have gone for pole position, but instead he slid off the road heading into the final sector of the racetrack. However, at least there's still another run, except there isn't, because Hamilton's made yet another mistake and is now 10th on the grid, even though he easily should have been on pole. Max Verstappen was trying to fight too, and after the early runs in Q3, Carlos Sainz and Pierre Gasly were locking out the front row. But George Russell for Mercedes managed to take a shock pole position with his teammate 15.794 off the pace of his teammate George Russell, who did a brilliant lap for pole position. But we know now, can Mercedes win for the first time since Spa? Well, Russell got a great launch off the line, and Pierre Gasly tried to challenge Carlos Sainz for second position. But his teammate Charles Leclerc went past Gasly and Carlos Sainz and got up to second position and tried to challenge George Russell for the lead. We got through the first corner with not much chaos. Franco Colapinto had managed to start the race in 20th position and in the pits. And that was a question over after that big crash, whether or not he'd be able to compete for the rest of the weekend after that almighty shunt. But as the race got underway, Charles Leclerc was now challenging for the lead of this race, and headed into lap 5, George Russell could last no longer, and Charles Leclerc tried going around the outside of the Mercedes driver, but Leclerc could not find a way through on the outside of the racetrack, and Russell managed to keep the lead and started pulling away, and Carlos Sainz attacked his teammate and got up to second position. Meanwhile, 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton was on the charge. After an absolutely diabolically, absolutely terrible weekend in Brazil, he was on the charge and managed to make up some positions, as Verstappen cleared Charles Leclerc and was now on the charge against Carlos Sainz for Ferrari, who needed to take a big leap out of McLaren's lead in the Constructors to keep it alive for Qatar and Abu Dhabi as Ferrari try and clinch their first Constructors' Championship since 2008. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz, old rivals and old nemesis after the start of this year, tried to go into the pit, except Carlos Sainz knew he was in a Ferrari, and Ferraris don't go into the pit lane. So Carlos Sainz slid off the track and had to go on another lap because guess what? They weren't ready. Lewis Hamilton got past World Championship-elect Max Verstappen, who was on the brink of a 4th World Championship, but Hamilton was on the charge and managed to get up to second position. Meanwhile, for Sergio Perez, he was fighting for points, and with a brilliant move past the Haas of Magnussen and Yuki Tsunoda, Perez managed to snatch his way into the points. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen was in 3rd position with 3 laps to go, as Hamilton looked to take one last win with Mercedes and hammered the gap to George Russell in. But Carlos Sainz got past, and as did Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. But George Russell won the race, with Max Verstappen crucially clinching the World Championship, beating Lando Norris. Now, I did an article on my website, which you can check out. It'll be in the description of this video, where I counted back all of the points Lando Norris lost. And there's so many, it's unbelievable. Lando Norris should have easily took the 2024 title fight, and should have done it before Abu Dhabi, which is, of course, this weekend for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So do not miss all of my post-season reviews I'll be doing the week after, and I'll be ranking all of every F1 sprint ever, and loads of other exciting stuff. So please like and subscribe if you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.